Hey Chris, we're back from our road trip and back in the home offices and
So far
back to
away.
work. Back to work, and I'm trying to image you and get my hair cut super short by accident.
At least you use a barber. I just do it in my backyard. It's kind of weird. So,
Actually, this
um,
is the first time. This is the first time I've been to a barber, probably in a year and a half, because I did figure out how to cut it myself too.
yeah, I used to go every 2 weeks, and pandemic, Amazon purchase Remington thing, and I was like, screw it, let's just pick 2.5 millimeters, let's just go. So
There
that's
you
pretty
go.
much there's the haircut.
It's amazing things that you can do on your own. But one thing that people should be doing on their own is trying to do incident response.
Oh,
And
yeah.
figured we could unpack some of that today for what small business owners, even medium-sized business owners, should do if they think their email's been compromised. You know, some people some people think that somebody got into my email. It's no big deal. I'll just change the password and move on. But I think we need to unpack what can happen and what should be happening after the fact.
Let's start at the beginning. Please make sure logging is enabled. Audit logging is enabled. We've
Yep.
seen a few instances where audit logging was disabled. If audit logging is disabled, you're there's you can once you turn it on, you get 7 days of sign in logs. That's all you get. So you can kind of see maybe who signed in from someplace else if an account takeover happened, but like that's it. So
So
the first thing you should do
audit
is
logging,
absolutely make sure.
audit logging definitely. The older Office 365 tenants didn't have audit logging turned on. But the other thing
Right.
is make sure that you've got um, at least 30 days of history in the Office 365 portals, because people have been going with the $10 a month accounts or just getting email, and Microsoft's got 7 days of logging if you're not exporting that stuff, guys.
Yeah.
So make sure that you get licensing from Microsoft and enable it so that you are logging more data, because if data ages out pretty quick in 7 days in an incident, and you might not even know that the person was there for a month or more. Typically, what is it? The FBI and Secret Service numbers are anywhere between 100 and 200 days that the bad guys are sitting on an account before you know it.
We're we're seeing different ones. We've seen ones that were like longer, and then we're also seeing ones that are just like, hey, get into an account, see what you can get done in like, a few days. We also had one that was compromised for 3 years and that was sending out a certain country's pornography. So that user didn't really communicate internally very much and just never paid attention, but his account was taken over like 3 years ago. So,
Oh, I
um,
was talking to somebody the other day who did an assessment for somebody, and they were like, Sally's logging in from weird locations to find out that they don't even have a Sally.
so their global admin account got hit and accounts got created.
Global account got hit, and that was and you know, in the case I'm working on right now, yeah, this looks like it's another case of a global admin that was used, because I found remnants of the global admin account being used to access every single email account in there. So now I have to assume that
Yep.
every piece of email in that tenant's been compromised along with their Office 365.
So number one, make sure auto log is turned on. Number two, don't run as an admin, whether it's
Period.
Google, whether it's Microsoft, do not run as an admin. Have an admin account that you can log into to do admin functions, preferably in an incognito window. That's all you use it for. And then you run as a normal user. That way, if your email is compromised or your account is compromised for whatever reason, they have access to your stuff. They don't have access to everybody else's. Now, that's assuming you didn't give your account access to a bunch of other people's mailboxes while you're an admin. So take that for what it's worth. I think the third one, you want to look for rules. That's a big one, right? Like, so what we see in business email compromise is they're going to create rules. So either going to delete incoming mail or redirect it to a folder, and outgoing mail will also be redirected so it doesn't go to your sent items. And we run a PowerShell script, which is fancy, that we can look at all of them on a domain to see, or on like a 365 account to see how many rules are created, and we can look at it. We can kind of notice like rule names because they usually use like really weird rule names, which is a bunch of characters. We can look and see what's on everybody's account. One of the big things that we're also seeing is they're making a rule to external forward the mail out. So even if you clean up the business email compromise, even if you don't go out and get instant response, they still may be forwarding mail out and you're not noticing it.
And the rules are a great thing, but people also need to know that there's multiple places that rules can be added to an Office 365 account. Like if you go into your Outlook today and you look at the rules, you might not see this, but if you go log into the Outlook web interface and go look at rules, you're going to see different rules. And that's what we saw last week, where we actually went 2 levels deep on this on the one investigation we were working on, where one of this person's business advisors opened an email from that he received that was from the bad guys, and he got infected. He got compromised, and the bad guys actually created a rule on her Outlook web access to delete any email that came from the compromised account. Yep. Including, and then it went further and said, okay, well, if it was from this person, or if it has the word hack, scam, anything, just delete it and move it over here. And she couldn't understand why everything that she was getting deleted. We logged in and said, oh, yep, you've been compromised too, just like the other person. So that's that's one thing that, one person's hygiene hurts somebody else.
Well, and on top of that, we got to look at, was there a crime committed? Outside of just taking over the account, sending out spam messages is one thing, but if you've lost money, if you've had information stolen, you absolutely should call an instant response company. Don't just do this on your own. Like, you should, it's going to cost you money. It's not going to be free. It's not going to be cheap. But if it's hit you, now if you have cyber insurance, you might be able to submit that to them, and as long as you followed through all the rules and stuff like that, they'll probably just cover the forensics to happen.
So Chris, that's a good point. With cyber insurance, I typically tell people, if they have cyber insurance, let's start there. Call them and notify them first, because sometimes they'll want to use their own incident response team.
Yep.
And they may not pay for somebody that we recommend to do that. So guys, yeah, it's going to be expensive, and if the insurance company is bringing something in, they're probably going to end up paying for it.
Yep.
But you do need.
It's like car insurance, right? You get in an accident. Who's your first phone call to? Well, probably a spouse or something like that, or significant other or whatever. Tell me you're okay, but it should be to your insurance company.
Actually, we had a friend of mine's son was in a car accident not too far from the house. He ran out to go get Dunkin' Donuts, and he flipped his car on a turn. Yeah, his first call was to mom. Mom, I flipped the car, but I'm okay. I forget what he was driving, but he hit that. He hit it just right, and he flipped that sucker.
He hit a curb?
Yeah.
Oh, geez. I'm glad he was going slow too when he hit that curb to flip the car.
So, but this was around the time when my daughter was in driver's ed, and they popped up a picture of this car because in the class of some danger things that can happen, and my daughter started laughing, and the teacher got very upset. She goes, "Why?" I said, "He's fine. He flipped the car going to get donuts." And but yeah, no, it's just...
The only story I have like that is this has been a long time ago now, but I was in high school. My cousin, it was my cousin. He was driving without a seatbelt on, and he was making a big turn, and he leaned over, opened the door, and fell out of the car. And the car hit a tree and wrecked.
Well,
so,
running Office 365 as an administrator without logging is kind of like driving without a seatbelt.
Yeah, making a big turn and you have a loose door, and you just push on the door and you fall off the car. But yeah, if a serious crime has been committed, you should absolutely call IR. Actually, if you have the inkling, call your insurance company. If you have cyber insurance, call them. and tell them, look, this is what's happened. Let them help you navigate it. And as long as you have like MFA on, normally for business email compromise, they're going to be all for it. You know, if you check the box that you were using it and you weren't, they'll probably tell you to go pound sand. But like, make the phone call first, because if they'll cover the cost, an instant response is going to cost you $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. I mean, you might get off lucky on business email compromise. If it's something small, you might get cheaper than that. But like, those are the numbers we're talking about. So if you have insurance, call them first and kind of go from there. We would encourage it probably for most cases.
Absolutely. Well, a lot of people's like, well, try and brush it under the rug and go away. But this is real difficult. There's a lot of information out there at this point. All of your contacts have probably been compromised. People need to assume that every piece of email, every piece of every file in their OneDrive account's been compromised. And I was doing a quick scan the other day of this client, and I'm looking at the at the SharePoint logs, and the first file I saw accessed that was being actively updated was passwords.xls.
Please, this unpacks something different.
That's a topic for another week.
Please don't have that file. That file should never exist. Just don't, please. So, but hey, but again, because of the searchability of SharePoint and searchability of OneDrive or Google Drive, I mean, dude, what if I get in an account, what am I going to look for first? Passwords, right? Yeah. Credentials. Start typing the word and see what you can find. And if we're relying on just people's like their actual authentication to protect something, I mean, you're done, right?
Yeah,
just be careful. We've seen too many business email compromise where money's been lost, and like, you want to make sure that everything's taken care of properly. So even if you don't turn in insurance, maybe your deductible is too high and the loss isn't big enough, you should really consider looking at an incident response company, just because you want to make sure that however they got access, you determine that and you stop it. Because Absolutely. If you don't, you can get hit again. If your users are weak and they click on emails and they do things that are just questionable, and you don't take efforts to train them and help them understand what they did wrong, they're just going to keep doing it. And you don't want to fire people just because they made a mistake on email. That's just an over exaggeration or I guess it's overreaction for what happened. Humans make mistakes, but what we can't do is we can't compound them by them just ripping on people, because then nobody's going to, report that they clicked on an email. Like for us, for our customers, we would rather them call us and say, hey, look, I made a mistake. I screwed up. I clicked on this link. I submitted my credentials. Okay, well, let's go immediately take care of this. Because if they come to us 4 days later,
God knows what's been gone.
Yeah. Come to us now. Come to us immediately. We can help you immediately. So.
Yeah. So, guys, if you're using Office 365 and you haven't done a risk assessment yet, reach out. Let's talk about assessing that environment, because there's a lot of stuff that needs to be said in that environment, because Microsoft and Google are not doing everything they are not implementing everything they recommend out of the box. So just going in and setting up an account and saying it's all self-service cloud services, it's not that simple anymore.
No.
So reach out, do a risk assessment. If you've got something else you'd like Chris and I to talk about, we can catch that on a future thing. Comment below, and that's all I got for this week.
Yeah. See you next week.